on
RTR.
episode 2 of RTR, the New York City Marathon Road to the Race with Dave Mendelsohn. And today we're talking about signing up for race transportation, what's going to happen when you're at the race, when you get there, race day, and also we're talking about the course, the New York City Marathon. So New York Roadrunners sent out an email, I think it was yesterday or the day before, for people to start signing up, picking up their transportation, and figuring out if they're going to take the ferry, if they're going to take the bus, if they have a private car. So what do you think is the best path, and what happens when you get there?
Yeah, so the best path will depend on where you live, right? So a lot of people coming in to the marathon are either going to be people that are already in Manhattan. They live in New York City or something, and specifically Manhattan, or they're tourists from some other country or another city or something, and they may be staying in Manhattan. So I don't have the numbers, but I would suspect a high portion are coming to Staten Island from Manhattan. And if you are, it's very easy to get to the race, and it's going to be essentially free. I mean, you could pay. There are ways to pay, but the New York Roadrunners has buses set up that you can get a spot on, and that's free. You've already paid for the race, so you can get there. You can also take the subway down to the Staten Island or
the ferry. Staten Island ferry.
Yep, and the ferry is also free. The Roadrunners, when you're signing up, they often will have you book a slot on the ferry. So think about what time is your race starting. What time? Because there are different waves for the New York City Marathon, so you need to be familiar. If you're in wave 1, you're going to be starting, I don't know, it's like 10 o'clock or something around that time. But if you're in one of the later waves, it could be hours later. There's a lot of waves and a lot of time.
I think I'm starting at like 11, which is perfect for me because that's the time I like to run. But anyway.
So you'll just want to time your time getting to the ferry or to however you're getting there, just with that in mind. So you can book a slot with the ferry through the Roadrunners. And a lot of people have asked me over the years, like, what I signed up for this early ferry. I didn't realize my race is till later. What do I do? You can just go with what you have, or you can just go and show up at the ferry and take it. So the Roadrunners, as great as they are, they're trying to organize some of the chaos and the mayhem by getting people to book these slots. They're not actually booked like with the ferry. The ferry is free for anybody. You don't even have to be doing the marathon to take the ferry. They don't.
Okay,
do that.
That's good to know.
But, so if you forgot to sign up to get a slot on the ferry, you could still take it. You're not out of luck. But they want to organize that. There's a lot of people. There's going to be 50 or 60,000 people. Right?
Yeah,
so
I was going to say probably like 53,000 people.
Yeah, so we want to play by their sort of loose rules and go with when you are suggesting that you're going to go or saying you're going to go. But I say this in case somebody makes a mistake and then they realize I forgot to or it was the wrong time. You're not screwed. You can still, take the ferry. It's free. So that's one way. You could do the ferry. There's buses. You could take the subway down to the ferry. You could also get an Uber if you wanted to, or a taxi, and they will take you out to over the Verrazano Bridge. They'll drop you off, and you'll walk just like anybody else where the buses drop people off in Staten Island, and you'll walk into the Athlete Village. It's going to be a lot more expensive.
I have a quick question for you, just back to the Staten Island ferry. So, because I went through this process yesterday. So the ferry, however you get to the ferry, you get to the ferry. And then the ferry drops you off in Staten Island. And then you get on a bus. And that bus takes you to the start area. But
at Fort Watts,
from what I'm understanding, it's a little bit chaotic, right? Like anything in New York City, like you're going to go to get on the ferry, there's going to be thousands of people, then you're going to get off the ferry, you're going to have to get on a bus. So with that scenario in mind, and as someone who has like tremendous stress and anxiety over these kind of things, and I'm sure it's race day, like other people are going to be nervous, like what do you recommend people expect? Like maybe you won't get on the first bus, maybe you won't get on the second. Like how do you plan that time-wise?
That's a great point. And I think for a lot of people, they'll be in the same situation. It's very stressful. Yeah. Lots of people, it's their first race. Lots of people, they haven't gone to Staten Island ever before. And there are a lot of different reasons for stressors. For me, I'm still nervous. This will be the 17th time I've done New York. and I get nervous every time I do any of these because it's something that's important to you.
Well, you
So,
had to be somewhere on time. There's a lot of people trying to get
yeah.
there too. There's limited resources, and there's just like that is the kind of energy.
Yeah, so look, the Roadrunner sets it up with these time windows with that in mind. So if you are the type of person who feels like you need a little more time, like I always show up to races so far in advance getting there that my wife is like, why are you, like, now you're just going to stand around forever? And I do. I
Right.
would rather have that than be nervous. So if you're the type of person that wants the extra time, book a little bit earlier on the ferry to get across. You may have to wait for that other bus on the other side, but you'll know you've got that extra buffer. So just
Right.
plan accordingly. Give yourself extra time.
And if you did book,
deal.
yeah,
It's a big deal race, and so you might as well overbook your time so that you have more. The worst case scenario is you're going to be sitting on Staten Island for maybe half an hour longer than you otherwise would have. It's actually
Right.
really cool. There's a great vibe over there. I think that people have asked me in the past, how can I minimize the amount of time that I'm going to be spending on Staten Island? And I think, like, why would you do that? It is the athlete village, when you see it, is an amazing experience. There are 50,000 other people just like you who've trained all year for this thing. There are giant speakers all over the place that are barking out orders and commands and instructions in all kinds of different languages. It's very
Yeah.
and it's very set up. There are signs everywhere that show you where to go to get to the green area, the orange, all the different colored corral staging areas. There's a lot going on. There's a band. There's Dunkin' Donuts usually has a van that's giving out coffee and these cute little Dunkin' Donuts hats. They have
Right.
terrible bagels that they give out. There's tea, all kinds of stuff. But it's like a big, exciting atmosphere. Live music, things like that.
So it's a big party.
It is. It's like a party where you want to like sit down for the party and you're not like jumping
Yeah.
around because you're about to run 26.2 miles. But it's an adventure, and it's one of the only times that you get to feel like you're part of a giant thing like the Super Bowl, where you're rolling out and this is all for you. There's a big athlete village. Unless you're in the Olympics, you probably don't get that. But this is
Right.
for like all of us who aren't in the Olympics. We get that
Right.
for that day. So embrace
And
it.
and so let's just, since we're talking about, and we will go back to the other options for travel, but since we're talking about the race village and event day, let's talk weather, because this is something that people need to think about. Historically, going to the New York City Marathon and showing up a few hours early has been not really fun because it's pretty cold in New York. It could be like 30 degrees, 40 degrees, but now that, thanks to global warming, it could be 70 degrees. I mean, seriously though, like, it's not that cold.
It's going to be 54 and
Yeah.
sunny with
You
like
know
some
already?
light coverage. I just know. This is what I'm hoping. It probably won't. I've been on years where it was really cold, a time
Yeah.
or two where it was like raining. Sometimes it's been warmer. It's never terribly hot. Even on the hot years, that's still like 70 maybe or 65. It's hot to run in, but it's not hot to sit around in. So if you're sitting around for a couple of hours in Staten Island, bring clothes. This is a good time to go through your wardrobe and do some spring cleaning or some
Yeah.
fall cleaning, autumn cleaning.
Yeah.
So they will take all the clothes that you bring and they'll donate those to various charities. So if you have pants, that you just don't want, they're not fashionable or they're worn out or you just
Right.
don't need them, pair of sweatpants or something, a light jacket or a couple other t-shirts. Your closet's too full of race t-shirts, so wear a couple of them.
Yeah.
You'll be warm, and then you could discard those as you go to the start. The other thing I always like to tell people is get a copy of the New York Times and bring that. And the Times, like, not the digital copy, get the physical
Right,
paper.
because your phone battery will die.
Yeah, so
Another
you want something to read, and there's nothing
Yeah.
better to read than the New York Times. We all know that. I hope everybody agrees with that. But it's
I enjoy
thick.
the New York Times for sure,
It's
especially
thick,
the
though. It's
style
like-
section. Yeah.
The weekend is going to be thick, so now you have something that you can read and you could sit on. The grass could be wet if you're out there in the field. Even if it's not raining, there's the dew and everything. You don't want to sit in wet grass for a while. So bring the Times, find the style section you want to read, and then sit on the rest of it. And you'll be entertained and you'll be comfortable.
That's a good idea. Or you could bring
Yeah.
like an old towel with you. I
could
mean,
bring a
basically
towel.
they donate everything to charity, right? So like
do.
when I did the race in 2019, I did it as media. So I have no experience. I mean, I was in a tent and it was really awesome, and I'm not doing that this year. So I was thinking, like, if we have an old sleeping bag or something, I might bring that. I mean, it depends on how early I get there. Yeah.
Here's the other consideration.
I'll go
'cause you
back
do
to sleep.
Sometimes you'll see people with a sleeping bag. They will
Yeah.
limit what you can bring in. The only things
Oh.
that you can bring in can fit into the pretty good size plastic bag that they will give you. So if you've done any of the New York Roadrunner types of races and they give you those plastic bags, it's like one of those. You could fit a squished down sleeping bag into that, probably, but you have to think like, do I want that to be like the real estate that I have in that bag? Because I want my gels.
That is a good point.
I want to have some breakfast or something that I'm bringing. You know, if I want to bring the New York Times, I want somewhere to put that. All of these things you have to carry in that bag. They will not let you bring a backpack. If you had a backpack and it was in the plastic bag, maybe, I don't know, but this I don't know
is
why they
good.
do that. You have to fit everything into that one plastic bag that they give you. Actually, they give you two. I believe they give you two. So there's one or two. You'll find out. Check.
Okay.
But
yeah.
One of those bags would be the bag that you can check. So if you are bringing other things, also very important for people who have medication or just other stuff that they don't want to just discard, you can check your bag, right? So you can give them this bag of stuff and you can check it and they'll put it in a UPS or a FedEx van and it'll be waiting for you at the end finish line.
I think they maybe changed that this year because I don't know for a fact, but I did see them asking you to pick if you want to check a bag or not check a bag. Yes. I mean, they may have something like race day, game day decision, but I know they ask you to check a bag.
So in the past several years, what they've done is they've offered you a bag check option or no bag. And I always go with the no bag check. I don't want to, I'll bring what I need. Everything else is leaving either with me when I run or it's going to be donated on Staten Island. But for some people, I had a friend who had diabetes and she had all the medication that she needed. She had to bring that, right? And so she
had to bring it that
check
morning.
That afterwards. She didn't want to have to run with all that stuff with her. So there are reasons why you might check something. Don't bring a bag full of like all these great things like your best, sweatsuit and you want to bring that home. This is not the time for that. So, and the other reason for that is when you finish the race, you'll end up in Central Park. There's a long walk that you're going to have to go through.
It's like a mile
after the finish line. It is. It's even longer to get to the bag reclaiming area. So if you have not checked the bag, you're out of the park earlier by like a half an hour or more. And then you get a poncho too. I don't think they give the ponchos to people that have checked the bag. So if you don't check a bag, you're more efficient, you get a poncho, and you'll spend less time afterwards on your feet.
I have a hack for that. Find a restaurant or somebody's apartment that lives nearby or something and ask them in advance if you can leave your stuff there, because I remember when I finished the marathon, it was really long to get out of the park, and I'm so thankful that I have a support crew and they were waiting for me with food in the car, but my phone died. So that was fun because I had to find a charger and I had to like go, and I was bonking like crazy. So I didn't even stop for a photo. Actually, I almost didn't get a medal because I was like still running through the finish line. I think getting ahead of all these things in advance and thinking of every possible scenario. Like you've got to be a triathlete right now.
Essentially, yeah. Don't bring your bike, but yeah, you can. There's a lot you have to consider.
But like I literally had a phone charger with me. Yeah. I had I'm crazy, but you know what? Like maybe there's listeners out there that are like me that are coming, just kind of like have a plan, because like when you come through the finish line, you're going to be tired and you're going to want food, and it's a little crazy.
Shout out to our partners at HVMN and Ketone IQ.
I am a big fan of Ketone IQ and exogenous ketones for racing, training, and everyday health. They give you extra energy, extra focus, and metabolic flexibility. But what exactly are ketones, you ask? Ketones are a fourth macronutrient, like carbs, protein, and fat. They also are fuel for your brain and clean energy without sugar or caffeine. I use one shot of Ketone IQ 30 minutes before I head out into a workout or training session. Another one 60 minutes later, and so on. I also sometimes take this just to focus during my workday. And for all my athlete viewers, there's no need to ditch your carbs. You can add exogenous ketones and Ketone IQ to your existing nutrition and fueling plan. Totally different kind of energy. HVMN and Ketone IQ are used by Olympic athletes like Des Linden, world champion triathlete Sam Laidlow, and top world tour cycling team
Team Visma Lisa Bike. If you're ready to get on board and level up your nutrition and fueling plan, I've got a code for you. hvmn.com/Marnie for 30% off your first subscription order. Link in the show notes.
Yeah, and without jumping around too much, let's talk about that because you did mention it just now. But once you've gone through the finish line, the first thing you're going to do, make sure you turn your watch off if you're recording your time.
Right.
And then you'll get your medal. They'll have somebody putting a medal around you. They'll give you one of those space blankets that you can put around yourself, which is nice.
Yeah.
You'll be running
It
hot
is cold.
from all the running.
Yeah.
And then you're going to cool down fast, so that helps. And then they'll give you a bag, and the bag has usually some Gatorade, a bottle of water. There's like some type of nutritional thing to eat, like some pretzels or whatever the brand is that is working with them. If it's
right,
Power Bar
Sis.
or something.
They have, I think they have SIS,
SIS.
SIS.
Yeah. So, and if they have some type of recovery bar, you might see one of those show up in the bag. And an apple. They always do like a New York City apple or a New York State apple, whatever. It's an apple. It's red. And so you get.
They have good apples, actually. They really do. I don't know where they get them, but they're really good.
I don't know, but they usually have terrible bagels, and there's usually a bag of pretzels. So they're not giving you a buffet. So they are giving you something that you can snack on as you get out of there, and then you'll figure out where you're going. You've pre-made plans to go back to
I'll
your hotel,
have a buffet. So if anybody runs out of food, just come find me. Because I as a triathlete in my DNA, you should see what I bring with me.
Your crew will have everything waiting for you.
No, I carry it with me. I have another 10 pounds of food.
Well, we'll talk about that. and talk about how much you should carry versus how much is overkill and just dead weight. But anyway, so plan.
But seriously,
I think the big takeaway is plan to get to the start with a little extra time. You'll be happy that you have it. And then at the end of it, plan to meet up with whomever you're going to meet with or whatever your plan is. Think about what that's going to look like. A lot of the roads are closed. You'll exit on the west side of the park. And you'll then have to make your way around all this road closure to get to wherever you are. Usually what I do is walk a few blocks even further west. I find a city bike dock. I get on the bike and I bike back to Brooklyn.
Bike back to Brooklyn.
Yeah, it's not for most people, but I like to do that. So that'll be my plan. You could get on the subway and go to wherever you're going to and all those things. It's going to be hard to get a cab. It's going to be hard to find the people that you're meeting up with. So think ahead of time. Are we going to meet at 73rd or whatever the street is? There is a family meeting area that goes by, I think, letters by your last name or something. Just whatever the plan is, just let everybody know that's what we're going to do. Don't deviate from that. You will show up at this particular street. That's where they're going to be, and it'll work just fine.
So, it's a good idea to kind of, now we're in August, to sort of start thinking about, what you're going to feel like when you come through the finish line, what you're going to need, what you're going to want, and what your plan is in terms of, if you are going to have friends or family with you, where you want to meet them, and just start really planning that out and make a list of all the things, because if you get ahead of it, it's going to be a great, seamless experience, and, be prepared to walk after you come through the finish line.
A lot of walking, And also, think of how your body has felt on some of the long runs that you've done up to this date and even, the next month or so. Are you hungry when you're finished? I'm usually not. I've gone out with friends afterwards, and we've gone to get a great brunch or whatever, and I sit there and I have this great eggs Florentine or whatever, and I just don't want to eat it. But there have been other times that I've been famished, and some people tell me they finish and all they want to do is just eat, and they will do that. So know your body and have that plan set up too. You don't necessarily want to meet your friends if you're the type of person that doesn't want to sit around while you're feeling uncomfortable and sweaty and gross and you're not really hungry. Or maybe you're somebody that's I don't care, I want to eat, I'm going to hang out with my other sweaty friends. Just figure that out for you and you can plan accordingly.
I will say that my usual sort of even though it wasn't after the marathon, my usual post-race strategy is to go to Equinox, which is in Columbus Circle, and they have a juice press, and I get a protein smoothie, and I sit on the floor and drink it. But for the marathon, I think I'm just going to have a spot where I get in the car, and I usually can't eat like you right after. I need 30 minutes, but I do need, but even if I'm not hungry, I feel like having a protein smoothie and some carbs just kind of, you need it, even if you don't want it, and then all of a sudden you're starving.
That's another good call out too, and there's a lot of science behind that too. You can look it up. There's a magic window. I don't know what it is, 15 minutes or something.
For women, it's 20 to 30 minutes, and for men, I think it's an hour. or maybe it's the
there's
reverse.
Some period
Yeah.
of time, there's some period of window that always seems sooner than I would think it is, that you
Yeah.
want to get some protein and some carbohydrates back into your body to start rehealing yourself from what you've gone through. And it doesn't mean that if you aren't hungry and you don't do it, you won't heal up, but it's just like a jump start. So if you're
Yeah.
not hungry, you won't eat. Eventually you will. But if you can eat something and it's not just junk food, it's probably going to be beneficial for your body to start repairing those damaged muscles, to get back some energy, to start to feel a little more level-headed. You may feel
Yeah.
lightheaded from being so hungry, and all of this stuff will help to balance you back out. And then you'll be great. And then later on you can have brunch or go out to, a
Yeah.
club or do whatever you do in the evening, or just go home and watch Netflix. Which is
Totally. That's my plan. I'm coming home. I'm gonna have food in the car. I'm coming home. I'm sitting on the couch. Maybe I'll take an ice bath, get into my infrared sauna blanket, and then peace out. Maybe I'll drink some more ketones if I'm not already ketoned out.
Why are
But,
you driving back home if you live in Manhattan? You could just get on the subway. Go pop on the subway.
No, I don't take the subway. I
environmental.
can't take
All
the
right.
subway. I know, but I'm just like high maintenance. It's all right. I'm like that.
For everybody else,
I'm not embarrassed.
Cares, for everybody else
Yeah.
that cares about
Yeah,
the environment,
most people
and
take the
and
subway. Yeah.
and the car pollution and just the congestion. I think check with the Roadrunners; they might have something on their website. In the past, they've had it so that after the race, if you have a marathon bib, that you can take the subway for free.
Oh,
Some
wow,
years,
okay.
Some years it's been very obvious. They'll have often police officers down there, or they'll have the gates to the subway just open. Other
Yeah.
times I've been confused if this was free or not. But check with it, because there have been times where you can ride the subway back to wherever you're going and it doesn't cost anything.
That's great.
But
That's
don't
amazing.
quote me on that. They may have changed.
Yeah,
Maybe
I mean,
the
they may
MTA
change. You
is
gotta,
tired of
like,
that. Yeah.
check things out. They tried to charge New York Roadrunners for people to go over the bridge. So
Yeah.
you never know what's going on with them.
Uh-huh.
But so let's like rewind now, because we talked about the ferry to Staten Island and people in Manhattan that are taking the subway, that are staying here, that want to get to the ferry, or however you want to get to the ferry. You could take a cab, you could take the bus, you could walk, whatever. But there's also a private bus that leaves from Midtown Manhattan that takes you from Midtown Manhattan directly to the race start. So what's that like? Have you ever done that, or has anyone done that you know?
I have not. I have taken private buses in Brooklyn. I live in Brooklyn, so usually,
Right.
and another option that you could look into there are a lot of different running clubs around the city, and all of those clubs will have bulk numbers of people going to the race. Many of those clubs will charter their own bus.
Okay.
I do one of the clubs out of Brooklyn. They charter a bus. I always, send them an email sometime around now. I probably should do it to get a seat. It's like $15, and it'll pick me up outside of one of the running stores. It's like near where I live, and drive me right to the start. And it's a nice way to meet other people on the bus and like to see other people that are like-minded runners. But it's also a very easy way to get there. I've also taken an Uber. It was very expensive. And they were also very confused why it seemed like a lot of roads were closed, even though they weren't yet.
Yeah.
There is a time that the bridge will shut down. So if you
7
are planning
a.m.
to take an Uber, 7 a.m.,
I already
double
scoped
check
it
that
out.
time. Yeah, so you need to be in your Uber with enough time to get across the bridge before 7. Because
Yeah.
when they close it, your Uber is not going there across the
Yeah.
bridge, and maybe I don't know how you'll get there. Walk across the bridge? I don't know if they would even let you do that. So it's never been an issue for me, but there have been times 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I took an Uber, and the guy was like not believing me in the way to go, and he was like, the roads are all closed, and it's like, it's not closed, it will be closed, and he was so slow, I started to panic. I had plenty of time, and I
Right.
was like, this is not plenty of time any longer, and I made it. But it was like not without like mini heart attacks. So the easiest way is going to be something that the Roadrunners has identified as the
Yeah.
bus, or the Midtown bus that you mentioned, or the buses that go there, or
The buses
Staten Island
leave
Ferry.
really early
Yeah, they do, and it's
because the
whatever.
bridge
It's-
closes, so they
the
leave
bridge
at like I
closes.
think
it's
the
an early
last
day.
bus.
There's no
Yeah.
avoiding it for the New York City Marathon. You're going to be waking up very early. You're going to be getting an early start, and with that, there are two other things to consider. One, it's daylight savings time, so you get an extra hour of sleep every year. It always coincides with the marathon, so that helps. So when you're getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's like really 5 o'clock for you because you haven't adjusted to that. So it's still 5 o'clock. It's early or whatever time. But the other thing to consider though is you're going to be sitting on Staten Island in Fort Wadsworth for a long time before your race starts. And
Yeah.
if you got up at 5 and you had breakfast at 5, and then your race is at 10, it's 5 hours since you ate. So don't do that. Bring some food with you, peanut butter jelly sandwich or jelly if you're, a nut allergy person, or whatever you like to eat, a croissant, a slice of pizza, whatever you know that you can eat for breakfast. Bring that with you. Don't count on being able to just wait through the day and start running on an empty stomach.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because it's not like a normal race, right? Like normally you wake up, the race starts around 8 a.m., but for most people, right? Like for the pros, they start around 7, wave 1, like we were saying, the waves start around like 9, 10. And if you're starting at 11 o'clock, like you're on lunch basically. So
absolutely,
you have to think about that. And also, if you are taking the ferry, if you're not a morning person like me, and I live a mile from the ferry, so I'll probably walk there in the morning, and I'll be not eating probably until I'll probably do my normal thing, which is great. But I think for my listeners, like, think about that. Like, if you don't want to be up at 7 a.m., on a bus, like, take the ferry from New York, at least from Manhattan, because you can't take the ferry from anywhere else except Manhattan.
I don't think so. I never have. There's not a way to do it from Brooklyn.
One thing I will say, this was one tip that, I'm full of all these tips because I'm totally like crazy. My music did not work when I was in Staten Island, and it didn't work until I got to the other side of the Verrazano Bridge, and that was a really...
got it. So you were like streaming your music, right?
I was streaming my music, and this was something...
A good call out.
Yeah, I mean, I like to run with music. It's like my chance to listen to all my favorite like playlists, whatever, and that really freaked me out, and I was really upset, like very, very upset. So I think, one thing I would say is bring old school headphones, because the music, your Bluetooth may not work. And even your playlist, like download it before so it's not on Bluetooth or Wi-Fi.
Yeah, right. You're going to have a problem with cell connection when you're there. Remember, we're in an area that doesn't usually have this extra 50 or 60,000. There's more than that because there's all the volunteers too.
Yeah.
All the people at Fort Wadsworth sitting around using that bandwidth, and you may have no reception. People are sending a lot of video and pictures back to all over the world while they're there.
Yep.
So all of that is eating up that bandwidth. Download the music that you want to listen to the night before. Get it onto your phone or whatever you're running with, if you're running with music. And also, I think the Roadrunners, they will ask people not to run with headphones and music. It's not a requirement that you do or you don't. It's a suggestion for safety reasons or whatever. A lot of people like to run with music, and they won't pull you out of the race or take away your birthday or anything of that sort. If you have headphones, you're fine. But if you want to listen to that music, download it beforehand, or you might find you're in a dead zone, right? So you'll be kind of out of luck. But the other flip side of that is on the course, and from maybe mile 3 or so, once you're over the bridge and a little bit into Brooklyn, you'll start to see bands like continuously. So if you don't have music for the run, you're going to be listening to music and the crowds. And I personally recommend to people that they run it without headphones if you can, because you're going to have people calling your name. You're going to have people at all these bands, local bands have come out, and there's cheering the whole way, and you feel like a superstar. So you don't want to miss that if you are tucked away in your own music. For some people, they have to run with music because that's what they're used to. I'm not going to discourage that. And also for some people, they might want to have the music later on in the race when they're feeling like they're struggling. So, maybe that. But just keep in mind, you don't have to have music, and a lot of people aren't going to. I don't run with headphones.
I know. And, you're hardcore.
No, I mean, sometimes when I'm training, I will, but I won't run.
You will? Okay.
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes I won't. It just depends on the day. And I get that people are different.
Yeah, and you mentioned people calling your name, so you should wear a shirt, like maybe go to Michael's craft shop or something and put your name on your shirt, or
that's more than I would do. A lot of people will take a black Sharpie marker and
this is why we're hosting this
Coach
together.
Dave, right? They'll write their name on it. Some people take what I have found in the past. You could take a race bib from another race and flip it
Yeah.
around and write your name on that, and you could pin that to your shirt, the front or the back.
That's a good idea, too.
You're going to see some people use tape, like the 3M, like medical
Really?
tape their name on. You're going to see, I think, a significant portion of people, more than half, will put their names on their shirts. And I've done it some years, and I haven't. I don't.
And your
do it
name is
now.
on your bib. Yeah. Your name is on your bib, I think.
Is it for everybody? I don't know.
Yeah.
I get a special bib, so they give me one.
Because
that
you're a
actually
pacer.
has just
yeah. So
because
if
I
anybody
pace it.
is just tuning
So,
in and didn't see
I have-
episode 1.
right, I have a bib that will say Dave.
Yeah.
Something like that, or they'll ask me what I want it to say. It might say Coach.
Well, now I have my hat.
But I
that says
never.
Marty
But I
on the
don't even
booth.
wear that. I don't wear the
Yeah.
bib because when I'm pacing, I want it to be about the people that I'm with, and
Yeah.
so I want them to get their names. But also, I have been in races where I get really tired of people yelling my name, and especially like later on. Like a lot of times, it's really uplifting. I love it. It's great. But there have been times where you're in that dark spot, and you're like, the last thing I want is another person to call out like Abigail, come on Abigail, or whatever your name is, Dave.
Right.
You're like, just leave me alone. Or the worst is if you're running with, like, if your name is like Dave, you're going to be running next to a lot of other Daves anyway, so you can't really avoid it. They're going to be calling you.
Yeah.
But not as many Marnies probably. So
No.
wear your name. If you want people to call it out, they're going to. No one's going to see that Marnie and not say go Marnie.
I mean, I've spectated and I like scream everyone's name. I think it's
uplifting. It's fun.
It can be both, right? Like we've all been there. Like you're in a dark place and you hear someone call your name and you're like, you snap out of it for a second.
Yeah,
but
it's
also
more
it can be
helpful
annoying.
than not.
Yeah,
I think for most people, I would recommend putting your name on there. Get the Sharpie, or go to Michael's and get the iron-on thing, or whatever you do.
And
put
now
your name on it. It'll be fun. You'll like it.
Let's talk about phone battery life. These are things that are important to me. So you're hanging out for 4 hours in the race village, waiting to start for the marathon. I don't know. Are there chargers? Are there charging stations? Like,
I don't remember ever seeing any. I do remember seeing a lot of people that have the really, really small block battery things that are good for like 1 or 2 charge. And those you can carry, like depending what you're running with. If you have tights that have pockets, or like a running belt or something that you could stick that into and it's not a giant thing, I would consider doing that. You could do other things, like while you're on Staten Island, you might turn off your Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, or turn it on to airplane mode, because it may not be working anyway, but it will drain your battery.
Right.
So, or put it on the little like battery saving mode. I've done that. It seems like my phone still dies. If you're going to be relying on your phone, though, for an extended period of time, expect that battery to die and bring something that you can charge it again with. You're probably not.
And then also at the finish line. The finish line, like, it's going to be a lot of people also. So make sure you have, like, back to that whole, like, plan when you finish where you're meeting your people. Like,
find your people in case your phone's not working or it has died.
Yeah.
Tell them a specific street or a cross street, or like I said, the Roadrunners on their site will make it very clear where the family meetup area is. You don't have to be, it doesn't have to be a family. If it's like your neighbor that you're going to meet, anybody that you're meeting, there is an area for that, and it's pretty well marked.
Yeah. What else is there anything else that people really need to know about just transportation to the race day, and transportation and logistics, like in terms of getting out of there?
Yeah, I think just as like I think a main recap is just giving yourself extra time on both ends. Get extra time to get there. Go take extra time, more than you think you need, to get to the start. Then you won't have to worry. And then on the back side of it, plan for the worst case scenario where it's hard to find somebody and your phone is dead. Already tell your family or your friends or whomever you're meeting with, the cross street you're going to be, get that stick a piece of paper in your pocket that tells you where it was in case you forget.
Right.
That sort of thing.
Good point.
In all likelihood, your phone will be fine and you'll be able to find the people right away. But just if it's dead or the reception is bad, know where you can find them the old-fashioned way, before we had these phones that we rely on for every single thing that we do. And we can't live without them. But we can live without them, just you have to plan the way we once did.
All right. And if you're like me, then definitely bring a charger of some sort, like disposable charger or backup charger. Make sure your music is downloaded, and make sure you have enough food for the morning and hydration.
The newspaper to sit on, the Times to sit on and to read. and relax.
And don't bring
Yeah,
too much
and
stuff because they won't let you in. If you're
they
like
won't let
me,
you won't
yeah.
they won't let you in, or you'll have to check a bag or run with it, and that's just like extra stuff that you don't need. Be a minimalist
Yeah.
as much as you can. The bare minimum that you can get through with this race. That's what you
All right. This is awesome. Thanks, Dave. This has been
Cool.
super fun. And next time we chat, we're going to talk. Next convo is all about, what food you're bringing on the race nutrition, also like the different courses, the different strategies you can apply, the roads, the things you'll see, the sights, and
It's
the
great.
actual race.
It's an adventure. We'll talk more about it.